All right, fantasy baseball fanatics, get ready because we are diving deep
Yeah.
into the first two rounds of the 2024 Longball Fantasy Baseball Draft.
Oh, yeah.
12-team league, all that good stuff.
Yep.
And we're a year out, so it's a perfect time to look back, see what we can learn
Exactly.
from those early picks.
It's always fun to revisit these drafts, like a time capsule
Right.
of expectations and predictions.
Yeah, yeah.
And that first round, woo,
Oh, tell me about it.
it was a roller coaster.
We had some incredible hits and some
Oh, yeah.
painful misses.
Some real head scratchers in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's start with the big one, Ronald Acuna Jr. going first overall.
I mean, come on.
Everyone expected him to be the fantasy stock.
He was a lock until
Oh, yeah.
that ACL tear in May.
Season over after just 49 games.
Can you imagine
Brutal.
the fantasy owner who drafted him?
It's a tough lesson.
Oof,
Even the most surefire picks come with risks,
for sure.
especially with players who have a history
Right.
of injuries.
All right, well, let's contrast that with pick number 3, Bobby Witt Jr.
Oh, yeah.
The guy was an absolute steal, leading the league in hits and runs.
A lot of people were hesitant to
Right.
draft him that high.
I guess so, with the strikeouts last year.
Yeah, the strikeout rate the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
But he clearly made some adjustments
You did.
at the plate and blossomed
Yeah.
into a true 5-category superstar.
Wow.
.332, averaged 32 homers, 109 RBIs,
Jeez.
and 31 stolen bases.
That's exceeding expectations.
That's putting him to work.
Speaking of exceeding expectations, can we talk about Shohei Ohtani?
Oh, man.
At pick number 4,
Unbelievable.
a 50-50 feed.
50-50, 50 homers, 50 stolen bases
And that's just unheard of.
is incredibly rare
Right.
and makes Ohtani basically cheat code in fantasy.
Yeah.
And now he's eligible as both a hitter and a pitcher next year.
Oh, my goodness.
So it adds a whole other layer of strategy.
All right, let's move on to a couple more first-rounders. Mookie Betts at pick number 2.
Solid pick.
He actually missed significant time with that broken hand, right?
He did. 2 whole months.
Wow.
But even with that setback,
Yeah.
he still put up a .289 average, 19 homers, 75 RBIs,
Okay.
and 16 stolen bases.
So still pretty good.
That's Mookie for you.
Consistent.
Consistently delivering value,
Even when he's not at 100%.
even when he's not at 100%.
Okay, but what about Corbin Curl at pick number 5 and Julio Rodriguez at pick number 6?
Ah, yes.
I mean, there was a ton of hype
a lot of hype.
around them going into the draft.
They're incredibly talented young players.
For sure.
But sometimes that hype
I know what you mean.
leads to unrealistic expectations.
Right,
They both had decent seasons,
Right.
don't get me wrong,
right.
but they didn't quite reach that superstar level
Uh-huh.
that some were predicting.
Which is tough because,
It's a good reminder
Yeah.
that even with all the scouting and projections,
yeah,
young players can be unpredictable.
unpredictable for sure.
Yeah.
On the flip side, we had guys like Juan Soto,
Oh, yeah.
drafted 9th, and Jose Ramirez drafted 10th.
Sturdy edges.
Just quietly putting up monster numbers.
Consistently good.
Soto with 41 homers and 109 RBIs.
Yep.
And Ramirez going 39 homers, 118 RBIs,
Wow.
plus 41 steals.
They're like the rocks
They are.
of fantasy baseball.
You can always count on them.
You know what you're getting,
Yeah.
and that peace of mind
Yeah.
is worth a lot in fantasy.
It is. And sadly, we have to end the first round recap with another heartbreak.
Oh, no.
Spencer Strider.
Strider.
Drafted 11th, and his season ended prematurely
Another injury.
with a UCL tear in April.
It's always a risk,
It is.
drafting a pitcher that high.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it didn't pay off.
It didn't.
Strider was a rising star.
It was.
But that injury really threw a wrench
Oh, yeah.
into a lot of fantasy teams.
I bet.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to round 2, where things,
Settled down a bit.
yeah, a bit.
Yeah. Still some interesting picks, but
Right.
fewer of those oh no moments.
Yeah, the first round was rough. But
Yeah.
round 2, I feel like, is where you find those players that maybe slip through the cracks.
You got
Or,
it.
offer a specific skill set that you're looking for.
It's all about finding value
Exactly.
in those middle rounds.
Right off the bat, at pick number 13,
Okay.
Admir Guerrero Jr.,
Vladdy,
he
he had a bit of a slow start, but man, did he turn it on
Oh, he
in
did.
the second half.
Second half, Vladdy was a beast.
He was
.323, averaged 30 homers and 103 RBIs.
not bad.
Not bad at all.
I bet those who were patient with him
Oh, yeah.
probably had a good time in the second half.
They were reaping the rewards for sure.
And then, of course, there's Aaron Judge at pick number 19.
Judge.
I mean, what can you even say about a guy who hits 58 homers
It's Judge.
and drives in 144 runs?
I mean, what can you say?
That's MVP caliber.
He's a fantasy
He
student.
really is.
He might not give you much in the stolen base category,
No.
but his power numbers are just
Off the charts.
off the chart. Definitely a cornerstone
Absolutely.
for any fantasy team.
Without a doubt.
And let's not forget Yordan Alvarez
Oh, yeah.
at pick number 21.
Quietly put up
He did.
another solid season.
35 homers, 86 RBIs.
Power seems to be a theme
It does.
in this second round.
Alvarez is like, he's not the flashiest, but
Not the flashiest, but he gets the job done.
he delivers.
Consistent power.
Yeah. Now, we also had some guys in this round
Okay.
who dealt with some injuries.
Unfortunately, that's part of the game.
Austin Riley, pick number 16, had that hand injury.
Right.
And then some time off for paternity leave.
Always a good reason
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
to miss some games.
And then Yoshinobu Yamamoto, drafted 17,
Yamamoto.
had some shoulder issues, so
Yeah.
that limited his overall impact.
It's a good reminder that injuries can happen at any point
Oh, yeah.
in the draft.
For sure.
You got to have some depth
You do.
on your roster.
You could be prepared.
Be prepared for anything.
Even in the later rounds, you got to think about those what-if scenarios.
Always.
Now, remember, Matt Olson at pick number 14
Yeah.
continued to mash home runs,
29 homers.
but his batting average dipped a bit
A little bit.
compared to the previous year.
Yeah.
And then there's Trey Turner, who went 15th.
Yeah.
He battled that hamstring injury,
He
but
did.
still managed 21 homers and 20 stolen bases.
Olson and Turner, they represent an interesting point.
Okay?
They were still valuable assets.
Yeah.
Even
The
though-
bumps in the road.
Yeah, bumps in the road.
They still
It
produce.
highlights the importance
Okay.
of understanding a player's full range of skills
Gotcha.
and how those skills
Right.
translate to fantasy points.
Okay. Are you ready to talk about the most talked about pick of the draft?
Oh boy, pick.
Pick number 22.
Let's do it.
Josh Hader,
A relief
a
pitcher
relief pitcher.
in the second round.
Unheard of.
The Bank of Texas, the team that drafted him.
Bold strategy. They really went all in
All in on saves.
on that saves category.
Big gamble,
Huge gamble.
but one that
It could have paid off.
could have paid off big time.
He ended up with 34 saves,
Not bad.
which is fantastic.
That's a lot of saves.
But his ERA did jump to 3.80.
Yeah, that's a little higher than
It's
you'd want,
from a second-round pick.
especially a second round pick.
That ERA spike is interesting.
It is interesting.
If we look closer,
Okay.
we see his walk rate went up significantly,
Ah, interesting.
and that can be a red flag
It can be.
for a relief pitcher.
When you're giving up free passes,
Right.
you're putting yourself in more high-pressure situations,
Uh-huh.
and that can lead to more runs.
So while the saves were great,
Yeah.
those walks might have cost his team.
Yeah, they might have hurt him.
In other categories like ERA and WHIP,
Exactly.
it's a perfect example of how a single-minded
Mm.
focus on one category can have ripple effects
Ripple effects
across your whole team.
across the board.
Okay, wrapping up the second round, we have Corbin Burns
Oh, Burns.
at pick number 23.
Solid pick.
The guy was a workhorse, 15 wins,
Wow.
a 2.92 ERA, and 181 strikeouts.
That's incredible value.
Incredible value late in the draft.
Model of consistency.
And finally, at pick number 24, Corey Seager.
Seager.
He battled a few injuries,
He did.
but still managed to hit 30 home runs.
Solid.
A solid way to end the second round.
Seager's power is undeniable.
Oh, yeah.
When he's healthy,
Yeah.
he's a top-tier shortstop.
But that injury history,
It's always something to keep in mind.
you always have to keep that in mind.
It's all about finding the right balance
Yeah.
of risk and reward in your draft.
Okay, so we've covered all the picks in these first two rounds.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaway?
Well, I think it really highlights
Yeah.
the importance of doing your research
Uh-huh.
and not just relying on
Right.
rankings or projections.
You got to look deeper.
You got to go beyond the surface numbers. You really got to understand a player's strengths,
Uh-huh.
weaknesses,
Yeah.
and potential risks.
Right. So we just spent some time really dissecting those picks from the first two rounds of the 2024 Longball Fantasy Baseball Draft.
Lots of interesting decisions.
Oh, yeah. Looking back at these picks, it's almost like we're
I-
playing fantasy archaeologists,
It is a bit like that.
uncovering those clues about what works and what doesn't,
What works and what doesn't in those early rounds.
especially in those early rounds.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest questions that came out of this draft was
Oh, yeah.
that strategy employed by the Bank of Texas,
Big question mark.
drafting Josh Hader,
A relief pitcher.
a relief pitcher in the second round. I mean, that's
Unheard of.
unheard of in this league.
Yeah. It really makes you wonder,
It does.
are we entering a new era where relief pitchers become more valuable,
Interesting.
more sought after in the early rounds?
You know, when you think about it in a category-based league
Right.
where every point matters,
Exactly.
locking down those save points
Yeah.
could be a huge advantage.
Especially in a head-to-head league
Yeah.
where you're trying to win those weekly matchups.
Right,
If
right.
saves are one of your scoring categories,
Uh-huh.
Having a dominant closer like Hader can be the difference
It really could.
between winning and losing.
It's like having a secret weapon.
It is.
Someone who can consistently rack up points in
Yeah.
a category that other people might overlook.
Precisely.
And while Hader's ERA wasn't ideal,
It wasn't the best.
those 34 saves,
Still a lot of saves.
they were invaluable.
It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy,
It is.
but it could become
Yeah.
more prevalent in future drafts.
So for all you fantasy owners out there listening, this is something to consider.
Keep it in mind.
As we head into the 2025 draft, don't be afraid to
Think outside the box.
think outside the box and break the mold. Maybe those elite closers are
Yeah,
worth more than we think.
it's possible.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking about the balance between risk and reward in fantasy baseball.
Oh, it's always there.
We saw it with Acuna's injury in the first round,
Yeah.
and then again with the Hader pick in the second.
Two very different examples.
It's a constant tightrope walk, isn't it?
It is. They're trying to find those high-ceiling players
Right.
while also mitigating the risk of injuries.
Right, or underperformance.
Exactly.
You know, it reminds me of something you said earlier about building a team with a mix
Oh, yeah.
of those high-ceiling players
Right.
and those who are known for their consistency.
You got to have both.
Right.
You want those players who can win you your league,
Yeah,
but you also need that solid foundation
you do.
of reliable performers
To carry you through.
to carry you through those slumps or injuries.
Okay, so to wrap things up, what's the one big takeaway?
Oh, the biggest lesson,
Yeah.
I think, from the 2024 Longball Fantasy Baseball Draft
Uh-huh.
is that the old rules
Wow.
no longer apply.
Mm.
Don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Okay.
Do your research.
Uh-huh.
Trust your instincts.
Right.
And be willing to take calculated risks.
That's some great advice.
There you go.
This was a fascinating deep dive
It was.
into the first two rounds of last year's draft.
Lots of good insight.
It was full of surprises, insights, and I think some valuable lessons that we can all apply
Absolutely.
as we get ready for the upcoming season.
The 2025 season is just around the corner.
Remember, fantasy baseball is a game of skill, strategy,
And a little bit of luck.
and yes, a little bit of luck, but with the right preparation and the right mindset,
You got it.
you can set yourself up for success.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
It was my pleasure.
into the 2024 Longball Fantasy Baseball Draft. We hope you learned a few things and are feeling even more fired up for the 2025 season. Good luck out there, everyone.